Hello everyone, this is the LEGO Architecture Skylines series, miniature representation of Las Vegas. From a distance, it is definitely recognizable thanks to a good choice of landmarks, and I think that up close it continues to be fairly charming. This has a lot of varied build techniques, nothing ultimately too fancy in terms of how the assembly process has to go, but there was definitely quite a lot of hard work that went into designing this. A lot of interesting techniques had to be used to make best use of small spaces. Let's look at this from left to right up close. First of all, the Welcome to Las Vegas sign over there is a printed 1x2 clear tile piece, so not a sticker, which is great. It has a good level of detail on it. It's pretty nicely printed up and is definitely a good place to invest in a little extra expense, I think, in the design of this set to get that detail in there. And then here's the Bellagio. This looks pretty proper. It was very important, of course, to get the fountains outside that are showing a little bit of animation, and these pieces actually sparkle a little bit. They've got the fully clear transparent pieces used on the base above medium blue, so it has a little bit of depth there, and they're trying to show a little bit of movement. The building itself has some angles, just subtle angles that are angles you don't really usually see in LEGO. However, everything is placed here using legal techniques. It was interesting to put together, even though it looks like it's a little bit repetitive. I actually enjoyed putting this part together, and I'm even happier with how it turned out. In the end, I think the individual components didn't look quite so good, but when you assemble it all together, it definitely makes sense and is well worth the time to carefully line up some of the 1x2 and 1x1 pieces. Just make sure that when you build something like this, you build it with easy access to a very hard, flat surface, a glass table or something that's otherwise equally hard and very smooth and flat. So you can just line up all the pieces very easily. Helps a lot. You do get these columns on the back, but they were very important for the structure of this. I'm glad that they did go with the full depth to get this rear wing of it in there. They didn't just, cut it off there. And yeah, this definitely works out. You can also see the next thing we're going to look at is the Luxor Hotel, and it's just cut right down the center. It's black, all black, no printed pieces, no different colors. They don't try to simulate the beacon light at the top of it, but looking at it from the front, of course, you get the the Sphinx in front of it, and that does not use a printed headpiece, minifig headpiece. It's just a plain one, which I think is actually the right decision to go with here, because I think if they put a face there, it just would have drawn so much attention. Our brains are just attuned to human faces, and sometimes even seeing faces and things that don't have faces. So this kind of helps to just avoid, I think, attracting too much attention there by leaving it plain. But I still think it looks pretty fancy. Still one of my favorite looking things here. I liked the build of the Bellagio, but just the appearance of this here is pretty nice with the print for the headdress area. And then this is the Encore at Wynn Las Vegas. A curved building it is. They don't have the original Wynn here. They're not trying to show the two. Would have just required too much of the space here, so they chose just one. And this is a curved building. It's curved away from you, away from the street. They have the large sign down below, a little bit of greenery, shrubbery, and that's shaped up just a little bit so it's not too boring. Again, unusual angles are used here. If you look at this directly from the top, you can see how it's bent a couple of times, but there are no uncouth techniques used here. Everything is perfectly on the up and up. There are no stressed pieces. No parts are physically under tension or bending there. So that's all good design. I personally think perhaps this could have been done in dark brown. Would have looked a little bit closer to the black of the Luxor next to it, but maybe this is a little bit bright. Also, when you look at this directly from the side, as we almost are here, the top of the building doesn't give you quite a smooth, just single line there. From any other angle, it's not obvious at all. It looks pretty perfect, but just from the side, it's a very nitpicky thing, but it can bug you maybe the first time you notice it if you're looking at it on display kind of at eye level. But I don't think there's anything they could have done to do that any better, personally. And then, of course, this is the Stratosphere Las Vegas with its curved sides. You can kind of fake that. You can kind of make it curve in a little bit more by leaving these rubbery pieces or pulling them a little bit farther out of what they're attached to. They tend to want to spring themselves back in, but you can kind of accentuate the curvature there a little bit. Very effective technique rather than trying to build it up with bricks, which would have been very heavy, visually heavy, very thick, or with wedge plates, which would have exposed some studs, which would not have looked good. I think this is a very good choice here. The overall proportions are pretty good. It's so difficult to build things at this scale, but I think this was pretty well done. And again, it introduces, or at least uses, building techniques that I personally, as a Lego fan, just sound joyous to follow along with in the instructions. There's a little bit of upside down construction in here as well for the cone section up at the top, but it all goes together pretty well. It's almost completely symmetrical. It's not quite in the way that it's built, but it's difficult to see that it is not. So overall, the whole thing is giving a pretty good display from every angle. The least attractive part of this, I think, is just the use of these vertical bar pieces on the back of the Bellagio, but otherwise, level of detail, level of completion is fairly good all around. The last complex at the end there is the Fremont Street experience with some of the surrounding structures. This needs to be small relative to everything else, but I think it was a good choice to go with this specific 2x4 fully round-topped brick, the fully convex one, to show the screen tent. I forget the official name of that. It has all the screen on the inside of it. I think it's the world's largest display of its kind. And yeah, I think this captures the area pretty well. Maybe not the most iconic looking thing from the Las Vegas skyline, as small as it is, but this represents the birthplace of Las Vegas as we know it today. And in the instructions, they give you a little bit of the history about how things started here in terms of the industrial buildup or the commercial buildup of the place and the infrastructure buildup. So it makes sense to include it here. Overall, this was an enjoyable building experience for me. What I liked least about assembling it was putting together the 1x1 plates through the fairly repetitive construction for the different floors of the encore there. But again, as long as you have a hard, flat surface, you can always just use that, press everything against it, get everything lined up neatly, use the back of your fingernail to help to align the pieces across, and yeah, you'll get through it. And if you like what you see here in the video, I think that you will like what you see in person. The colors have good contrast, especially this lighter than medium blue, kind of powder blue color used over here. I think light royal blue they refer to it as officially. Just has a very nice chromatic quality to it, especially against the white. That helps things to stand out. With just the fountain area down here, the water, there's just a lot of kind of crystal effect with the way the light refracts through there, and you get some little highlights and everything. The overall proportions are pretty nice. Maybe the Stratosphere looks a little bit large and a little bit thick, but again, I don't think they could have done a much better job than they did. Lego architecture sets are almost always very, very expensive for their size, for their bulk. Sometimes the price to part ratio looks like it makes sense, but you have to be real. There are a ton of just tiny 1x1 plate pieces used in this and many of the architecture sets. So you don't really get a good deal on any of these, or on almost any of them. But it's all relative. I think that relative to others in this Skyline series, this one does provide pretty good value for your dollar, again, relatively speaking, and definitely provides good display value in my personal opinion. Those are my thoughts, and that's my look at the set though. Hope you enjoyed this. I will talk to you again as soon as I can. Thank you for watching.